It's time to wake up with a nice cup of morning roast.
Oh, yeah.
Featuring Aponte and Joe Shasky.
Well, I'm about that action, boss.
Take him out! This is the morning roast on 95.7 The Game.
It is the morning roast. Stephen Langford in for Bonte Hill. Bonte is out today, but he will be back tomorrow to close out the week. Of course, you can catch us live on YouTube, live on Twitch. The YouTube chat is humming right now. The Twitch chat is humming right now. And we're going to be joined in about a minute from Jason Aponte, who hosts the Sprint Right Option podcast. It's a 49ers podcast. He also does some work with Niners Nation as well. I mean, you want to talk about the new media? This guy is a part of the new media, especially with the 49ers. So we're going to talk to him in about a minute. But Chasky, you got a smirk on your face, and you just sent us something through the messages, and it's Pete Carroll quarterbacking, actually throwing a football.
It's him at practice in a long sleeve white shirt. He's got gloves on with glasses, and he's doing the drills of practice. Now, he's in his 70s.
Yes.
I'm telling you this right now. I have zero shame when it comes to this. I'm a believer when you're coaching, especially at the youth levels. I don't know about the professional, but the youth levels, part of what makes it fun for the kids is the coach getting down and showing them physically how to do some of the things.
Yeah.
Now, there's going to get a certain level where the kid's skill supersedes the adult skill. That happens in all of it. There's a transition period, right? But I'm going to be that old guy, like Pete Carroll, trying to still play quarterback in my 70s. My dad and me, we run Little League practices. I still put the glove down and field ground balls. I'm still swinging the bat. I'm still throwing batting practice. Basketball, I'll get in the drills, and if it's, let's say, we have 4 players on one side and 5 on the other, I'll be the 5th person.
Yeah.
I have zero shame in this. In fact, it keeps you young. It's fun, and the kids love it. And seeing Pete Carroll, whatever you guys feel about Pete, and I can't stand the guy when it comes to the coach, but this is the kind of stuff where I'm like, Pete, I love you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it was just in the most recent episode of Hard Knocks. I don't know if you watched the third episode of Hard Knocks, but Dan Campbell was
backlogged.
Dan Campbell was working with the tight end,
And I bet it was awesome.
teaching him how to block. And then you see how quick Dan Campbell moves. It's like, damn, you want to see him get out there on the field. But after seeing Pete Carroll here throwing foot, like, we need to see like a coach. Can we get an 11-on-11 coaches game where all the coaches play their respective positions? Like, you have Shanahan as a wideout, Pete Carroll as the quarterback. I don't know who'd be a center. Brian Dable as the center.
Well, Harbaugh's the quarterback because he wears cleats.
True. Good,
in pregame.
Good point.
You know, so,
good point.
You know, Shanahan can play wide receiver,
Well, okay.
although he does throw to his children at every
But
practice.
NFL coaches, though, I'm talking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, Jim's not exactly around anymore. I mean, you got John.
Is Mike McCarthy one of your guards?
Yes, something along those lines. Dan Campbell, the tight end. I think that'd be. I think that'd be a
We're going to bite a
spectacle.
kneecap off.
There you go.
We're going to take your other kneecap.
You want to make the Pro Bowl interesting? Get the coaches game before, like the All-Star Celebrity Softball game in baseball. Get a coaches game before the Pro Bowl.
Look, I'm a big believer in that the amount of people, let's just say the youth levels, right? The amount of kids that are even going to play high school sports are very minimal. Make it fun. You know, get in there, have some fun if you can, physically, if you can. And make it fun. It's good for you, too, to be healthy and burn a little of those endorphins.
I agree. I
love that Pete did this.
So we got 49ers Texans tonight, the third and final preseason game. The 30th is when they cut down the roster from 80 to 53, but this is the game where guys who are possibly on the fringe of making the team, this is where they make a name for themselves. Now, a guy who's made a name for himself within the media is Jason Aponte. You can follow this dude at Jason Aponte. That's APONTE 2103 on Twitter. He hosts the Sprint Right Option podcast. He does some work for Niners Nation. Good morning, Jason. Thanks so much for joining us, man.
Hey, good morning, Steve. Good morning, Shasky. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right, we've been playing a fun game all year with all the different people around the nation when it comes to Trey Lance. I just say this, and I let people talk.
Yes.
Trey Lance, your thoughts?
I'm ready, excited, and I think that everybody should be patient. I think the best word is to be patient. There's going to be moments where you see the talent and you see the flashes, and there's going to be moments where you say, "Oh yeah, that's a rookie." And I think that patience is the best way to go about it. You can't go through the highs without going through the lows, and I think that's the best way to look at it. One play isn't going to define him either way. It's going to be a body of work, which we're going to see this entire season.
So we're having a sports radio conversation naturally, Jason, about how much Trey Lance should play tonight. How much do you think he should play tonight? Do you think he should play at all?
I do, actually. And I guess the number one goal is to make sure that everybody gets out of this game healthy. But the 49ers do have 17 days until week 1. So there is something to the idea of being cold. And you do want to, momentum is big in this game. So you do want to see 3 to 4 series where they can string things together with the starters, start to build that cohesion with the offensive line. But main goal, get out healthy. But I do think because of the long layout and the way that these preseason games were jammed together, 12 days, 3 of them, I think that it is good for them to get out there, maybe feel some hits, get them in, get them out, but get them ready for week 1.
All right, so you've been at all the different camps and you've been watching every single practice with a fine-tooth comb. Who's a guy that maybe 49er fans at home who haven't seen any of the practices aren't familiar with that you actually think is going to make a deep impact on this roster for this year?
That's a good question. I mean, you can look at so many people. I mean, I've been firmly in the Jordan Mason camp, and we're going to find out what he can do. Hopefully he gets some more run this time, but he's been one of the most consistent players across camp. Deep impacts, I mean, there's going to be the guys that obviously everybody's going to see Bosa, all those guys fine. But, as far as like deep impacts, I think it's going to be guys that we haven't necessarily seen pop on the field. So, I mean, during preseason. So, let's say, I'd probably say Tarvarius Moore is going to have a chance to impact if he can show some things, if he can clean up a little bit more on the back end. As we know that Jimmy Ward is going to be in and out. We don't know what's really going to be happening with him in week 1. It's going to be hard to say. I'm firmly in the Jordan Mason camp, and I am pushing. I'm stamp my flag, pushing for him to make this roster. I think that he's one of those Shanahan backs that either is drafted late or not drafted at all, that he gets something out of, and he just fits the profile so well.
Jason Aponte, he covers the 49ers. He hosts the Sprint Ride Option podcast, and he also does some work for Niners Nation as well. So you're speaking on Jordan Mason. Is the running back group the group that you're going to be paying attention to the most tonight? Are you going to have a microscope on the offensive line? Anywhere on defense, the cornerbacks, the linebackers? Who are you going to have a microscope on tonight as far as the position group?
Yeah, I think it's offensive line. I think it's running backs, and I think it's the free safety spot right now because of the influx, and we don't know what's going on with Jimmy Ward. George Odom was actually running with the ones in joint practices, actually had the interception in the Minnesota game. But how much is that going to carry over? He immediately took over with the ones on the next practice, and it was a little bit interesting to see Tarvarius Moore running with the twos. You saw a little bit of Dante Johnson actually too running with the ones. So it's going to be free safety for me. Everything else is pretty much locked in. You know who your 3 linebackers are. You know who the rest of the secondary is. You know what the defensive line is. Offensive line, I'm looking for that cohesiveness. Is that going to build? What do we do at center? It's going to be Jake Brendel. Does he look good? And then the running back room, I think we have a telltale sign as to who's going to make this roster. It's clearly Elijah Mitchell. Jeff Wilson starting and running with the ones pretty much puts him in the safe category. Now you have to get to the part about Trey Sermon, TDP, TDP's in, but Trey Sermon, Jermichael Hasty, and Jordan Mason are the 3 guys that I'm looking at that possibly are on the bubble or should at least be discussed in that way.
When you're looking at this, because you keep referencing kind of the secondary, which I'm worried about, and the offensive line, which I'm also worried about, if I were myself to pinpoint what I believe to be the Achilles heel of this team, if there is one, those would be the 2 places that I would start. Am I wrong for that, or is there an area that maybe I'm neglecting, like quarterback?
No, I don't think so. I think that there should be a little bit of hesitance, especially because we haven't seen Tarvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley on the field at the same time. But, you spent some time at Camp Shasky. Those guys are fine. I think that the cornerback room, I think that is locked in. It's more about what this safety group is going to look like. Talanoa Hufanga, who everybody's excited for, rightfully so, is inexperienced. He is. And what happens with Jimmy Ward not there? Who's going to fill that void? I think Jimmy Ward is one of those pieces. He's that glue guy that when he's not there, he can make up for so much when he is there. When he's not there, what's that going to look like? So I wouldn't say that it's a worry, but I could definitely see some concern. And the offensive line, nothing works if the offensive line isn't working. Not the running game, not what's going on with Trey Lance. I understand that Trey Lance has legs and he can move, but at the same time, you don't want to put your quarterback in bad positions where he's having to duck all the heat the entire time. So we're looking to see, especially with Mike McGlinchey not playing in this game, we're looking to see what this offensive line can do with extended reps, and hopefully that cohesiveness, it comes to the forefront this time.
Jason Aponte, he covers the 49ers. He is host of the Sprint Ride Option podcast, also does some work for Niners Nation, and we really thank him for joining us this morning. Javon Kinlaw is one name that I want to throw out there because we're talking about positional groups, but what this dude did against the Vikings in that last preseason game, just how in shape he looks, that video of him walking off the practice field after joint practices, Kinlaw looks like he's primed for a big year.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Steph Sanchez, who was at the joint practices. She was the one who actually recorded that video.
So
big time.
right. So good.
And everything as well. But yeah, I think that a lot of people are excited for Javon Kinlaw, and rightfully so. And in the beginning, I think that a lot of people had this way of comparing him immediately to DeForest Buckner because it almost felt like he fit right in there, and they basically drafted him to replace him. I don't think that's the correct way to do it because DeForest Buckner is one of one. And when people ask me, hey, what's your prediction for him, or what does a good season or a great season for him look like, I think it just boils down to being on the field. If he's on the field for 17 games, the rest will take care of itself. He's obviously a menace in the run game. You have to pay that extra attention to him. But I'm interested to see how he lines up with Eric Armstead inside in zero technique, three technique, being able to get to the quarterback. And if he can advance in that way, I think that once he just gets on the field for 17 games, it's going to be a problem for the rest of the league. I'm very excited for Javon Kinlaw.
Jason, just as we zoom out a little, big picture on the fan base and the quarterback position, this fan base with the quarterback, I scream and yell about this all the time. Frankie Albert and John Brody and Y.A. Tittle, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Garcia, Alex, Cap, like you go right down the list. And now we're at Jimmy and Trey. Are we going to be patient as a fan base, or are we going to lose our mind that first series if he airmails somebody on a slant? Like, because I feel like we're going to be the end there where we're going to lose our minds on every single throw. I don't think we can be patient. Do you think this fan base can be patient?
Look, I will say this. The 49ers quarterback position is a landmark position in sports, right? Like point guard for the Lakers, shortstop for the Yankees. The many places that are just like they're generational positions, right? So, of course, 49er fans are going to have high expectations for this. The second part of your question is, are they going to be patient? I preach patience, and I probably would say that it's not going to be as patient as people want it to be, as I'd like them to be at this point. But at the same time, it has to be patience right now at this point, especially when you consider how little he's played, what it looks like for many rookie quarterbacks, especially the ones that were highly touted much more than Trey Lance out of this draft class. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great year. Justin Fields had his ups and downs. If you would have told me that Davis Mills was going to be the second best quarterback, I probably would have said no, like out of this draft class, but that's what he was last year. So it's all of those other places that those guys play that has afforded them that sort of patience. But when you look at this roster, which is ready to go, and then you throw him in here, and then on top of that, you throw on the high expectations of the fan base, yeah, I suspect there'll be some people that won't be patient, but I think that cooler heads, the guys who are more level-headed, will be patient with the kid, and they will take the good with the bad.
One more here for Jason Aponte. Jason, I'm sure you've watched Hard Knocks before, and any of the listeners who have watched Hard Knocks, Hard Knocks tends to create a fan favorite out of maybe a late-round draft pick or an undrafted free agent. So if the 49ers were on Hard Knocks, who do you think that fan favorite would be? That late-round draft pick, that journeyman guy who is trying to make the 53-man roster?
That's a good question, man. I mean, I don't know what Jordan Mason's temperament is because we haven't really had a chance to see him, but he is going to, I think he's speaking or something like that, or he has spoken.
I've never heard him talk.
Right. Like, I've seen him run, and you get excited for that. Like, watching Hard Knocks now, you look at Jamal Williams, and he's like the standout guy. Yep. There's always that little, that zany character. That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to normalize saying I'm not sure at this point, especially like because a lot of the other guys, they don't really get a chance to speak, so we don't know what they exude as far as like their personality. Like Jimmy Ward is somebody who I think would be classic for that show. Like, and I think because of his confidence and the way he speaks, but he's not a journeyman. He's like he's like a stalwart. So it seems like the two guys that probably would jump off the screen now for the way that they've been kind of carrying themselves. Javon Kinlaw, because he's been a little bit, more carefree, I think, and Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk has been spicy all preseason. And he's actually even saying that the joint practices were boring. I would love to see what that guy would say, not in a press conference, while they have him mic'd up. So those would be my picks.
Jason Aponte, he covers the 49ers. Follow him on Twitter at Jason Aponte. That's APONTE 2103. Of course, he hosts the Sprint Ride Option podcast, does some work for Niners Nation. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Jason. We'll have you on later on this season.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Shasky. I just wanted to say before I go, Shasky, Bonta, Steve, I appreciate you guys supporting independent content creators like myself, like Splash Cousin Jordan Elliott, like Brad Graham. It really means a lot, man, and we don't take it for granted. Very humble by that.
We're all in the same ocean, man. We're all just swimming upstream, doing the best we can. He did a great job there. And what's great, honestly, is that boom, 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 rat-a-tat-tatting. We love that.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me again. It's a pleasure. And yeah, anytime you guys want me on, I'm
Hell yeah.
here for you guys.
Hell yeah. We'll
All right,
definitely
man.
do it again.
And also, good luck with the Yankees. So he's a Yankees fan. I know that. It's a tough time for Yankees fans.
Well, give me
right now.
Judge. You know, we can make a nice little swap out.